took him away from home to trial him, and he got down in the float. So we couldn't trial him, brought him home and had to run him in a race without a trial on a very heavy track in which he'd never galloped on. And he drew the extreme outside, so consequently he was 300 to 1 and duly won.
After another win and a second to Regal Jester in the South Australian Derby, he was sent to Melbourne for the Victoria Derby. After a third at Moonee Valley, he did this in the Blue Ruban Classic.
Into the straight they race now, and Justice Steel came out and whacked the favourite Caraman, but Caraman and Howburg immediately swept past it to take the lead. Behind them Turf Ruler, and then with Trust and Bowl Passer. It's Howburg and Caraman together at the 300 from Justice Steel. Turf Ruler coming at them. Higgins goes for the whip. Caraman takes the lead. He draws a length in front, and DULCIFY is going to be the danger. It's Caraman in front with DULCIFY out wide, eating up the ground near the line. DULCIFY is going to be too strong. Races to Caraman, and the Colin Hayes trained DULCIFY wins the Derby. A length and a quarter to Caraman.
Following the Derby, DULCIFY headed to Western Australia, and after an unsuccessful try at the Western Australian Derby on Boxing Day 1978, his return trip for a spell proved to be a traumatic experience.
He got very claustrophobic and hated aeroplanes, and so we decided we'd bring him home by road. And Terry Ryan was looking after him, who's now training in Sydney, and Terry's a very sound, sensible person who's a very good horseman. And coming home, the float broke down, so he was in 40-degree heat in a Nullarbor, and Terry hitched a ride into nearest town, borrowed a utility and trailer and float, two-horse float, came back, picked him up and took him into a place called Sejuna and stood him in the sea and splashed water over him until the float could get going and come and pick him up. And then that horse, he travelled him home, and we rested him till the autumn, and he came back a champion.
After his wins in the Australian Cup and the AJC Derby in the autumn of 1979, DULCIFY began his spring successes of that year in the weight-for-age Craigley Stakes at Flemington.
Nicolaus drew away by 2 lengths to Luck Runa now. Arbrashane getting out to go out after it. Marjolio looking for a run on the fence from Valley of Georgia. Superscope hanging. Mr. Sobar trying to get out. Then DULCIFY being eased to the outside, and Double Century fourth last with a wall of horses in front of him. Argios Nicolaus led into the straight without after it. DULCIFY with a big run out wide. So too is Arbrashane, and Valley of Georgia and Marjolio can't get out, and now Double Century getting out with Mr. Sobar. DULCIFY took the lead at the 200 in second placing. Arbrashane under the whip. Worry Symbol trying to get up on the rails, and Valley of Georgia battling on with Double Century, can't win. DULCIFY just the leader near the line from Arbrashane, and DULCIFY's won it. Won by about a length. Second placing Arbrashane, Valley of Georgia third.
After a third in the Underwood to Valley of Georgia, it was back to Flemington where he was unbeaten.
Round the turn, How Fast hanging, and Valley of Georgia got the run to go up and hit the front. And Valley of Georgia took the lead from How Fast and Sarfraz. Caraman behind them with Howburg, and there 4 or 5 lengths to Gondolier. DULCIFY keeps running into dead ends, and then Brioche Castle. Valley of Georgia tackled again by How Fast at the 200 from Howburg and Caraman. DULCIFY getting out is coming home hard down the outside. Valley of Georgia and Caraman with DULCIFY now coming at them strongly, and he swamped them in a stride. Caraman was in front, but DULCIFY got checked and then went straight past it, and he can't get beaten at Flemington, DULCIFY. He's won by about 2 lengths.
That race set him up for his legigendary Cox Plate win, and then it was the traditional lead-up to the Melbourne Cup, the LKS McKinnon Stakes on Derby Day. It was hoped that DULCIFY would be able to win without being put under great pressure. It didn't quite work out that way.
Into the straight, 4:50 to go. Minuetto in front, but immediately DULCIFY's gone up to second placing. Chivalry's making its run on the outside. It's Minuetto in front. DULCIFY and Chivalry come at it together. We'll soon know who's good. Chivalry's run past DULCIFY, got a neck in front of it. Thompson went for the whip. Chivalry a neck in front of DULCIFY, and then Minuetto battling on. DULCIFY coming again, has drawn level with Chivalry. It's DULCIFY and Chivalry together. DULCIFY ahead in front. Now a half neck. DULCIFY just in front, and DULCIFY's won it. A half neck to Chivalry. A length and a half to Minuetto.
After 21 starts, 10 wins, 3 seconds and 2/3 for a total of $568,775, DULCIFY came to the Melbourne Cup of 1979.
I don't know really what happened. I said at the time that I felt that when the pace slackened about the 1600 metres, that he was galloped on behind, and there was high Perno behind him, because he did end up with a lot of marks over his back legs. But you know, I mean, that's history, and whether that happened, no one could be really certain. You know, but he did get galloped on from behind. But it just goes to show the sort of heart that the horse had, because it took me to the top of the straight to actually pull him up in order that I could get off him. So he went some 800 metres on 3 legs. So he must have had a giant heart to carry him that far, because 800 metres on 3 legs is a long way.
And Brent thought that he was a certainty in it, and he was travelling beautifully when the accident happened. And I suppose it's fair to say that was my saddest moment in racing, when he was killed.
He's home, DULCIFY. He's 6 lengths in front of Chivalry, and then Ark imposing, stopping. DULCIFY's won by a minute, and that's the way he might win the Melbourne Cup. But Rubiton's in front. Oh, gee, is a good horse, like Harry said. 1.5 lengths to Vogue into the straight. 4 lengths to Wallspade, Proud Cossack Warrior. But Rubiton wins in a canter. Goes to the line to score by 2 lengths to Vogue. 5 lengths away, third, Allspade. An honest galloper from...
As they often say, horse people are mad, but you can see why.
Written by H. White to give him his 5th victory in the Fen. 20 years ago, he won on Volition. Then he scored on
Rubiton, the 4th musketeer. The other 3? Barnes, the trainer, Bayliss, the owner, and White, the jockey. Together, the quartet took on the world and won.
Best to be able to pick a horse,
David Bayliss, the owner, made the first move.
But, I went through the catalogue, and the Abcos catalogue, and picked 5 that I liked on breeding, with the updating in mind. 3 twig moss and 2 century yearlings. Then I gave Pat Barnes the lot numbers of those 5 and said, well, you grade them on appearance. He dismissed 3, and we were left with a century and a twig moss. The century, he simply marked Derby colt, love him. Well, bidding went very quickly through to 40,000, which was our limit. But then with a pause in the bidding, we put in 45 and just kept our fingers crossed.
I recall he had a trial, and he won a trial very impressively. And we just brought him along quietly with, training and a couple of gallops, and he showed always that he had ability. And he went into a race against Military Plume first up, and we really did think that he'd win, but it poured overnight, and he didn't. The owner was going to have a big bet on him, but the rain put him off, because we didn't know how he'd handle that sort of ground. And it was a bog track. I think they run 6 furlongs in 1:21. And he won. He beat Military Plume by a couple of lengths.
Rubiton contested a number of races before he became associated with the 4th musketeer, Harry White. And without detracting in any way from his previous rider David Tootle or his early career, it's safe to say that when the quartet was finally assembled, it provided a daunting and dazzling display.
David was having strife, managing him on the track. He was pulling very hard. And the circumstances surrounding the change of rider, well, we paraded, walking him at the track one morning, and the owner overheard Harry White say to Darcy Christie, "Isn't that a magnificent horse?" as he walked past. And the owner was fairly impressed by Harry's comment. And I think at that stage he thought, well, H. White thinks so much of his appearance. He was quite happy to contact him, see if he'd be interested.
I was admiring him with, as you say, with Darcy Christie about his ability and the look of the horse, and David Bayliss must have been there and heard that I was a bit wrapped on the horse, and then the horse had to run at Sandown, ran third in the race, pulled very hard. And it was after that that they decided then that they changed, David Bayliss would change the rider, and just out of the blue he just gave me a phone call, and I asked if I would like to ride the horse in the Oakley Plate, and I jumped at it, the chance to.
Going hard. Oh, he's a real machine, this fellow. Placid Ark's going to canter in, wins by 3 lengths. Special second, Rubiton third.
And Harry said then after that race, the way the race is run doesn't suit him. He'd be better suited over more ground. And he said he thought a race like the Futurity Stakes was ideal, because at the time we'd only intended to run him from the Oakley Plate into the Newmarket. But after what Harry said, we changed our mind and run him in the Futurity.
With about 200 to go, Rubiton's doing well. A half length in front and kicking away from Campaign King. King Phoenix the danger. Then Playful Princess. Rubiton clear. King Phoenix trying to peg him back, but Rubiton's holding him safely. And Rubiton wins well. A length and a half. King Phoenix. Playful Princess third.
He led in the Futurity, but still won. I was able to sort of, you know, communicate with the horse. Even though I was in front on him, I did have that affinity with the horse that I was able to communicate with him and relax him, and this was proven later. We're in longer races where they all said he'd pull. I used to have him out the back of the race and he'd just go to sleep for me.
There they are, mates together. The beginning of a long friendship and understanding.
After he won that race, he'd really won Harry, and he was then prepared to get down to 50 to ride him in the Newmarket, which he did. And he always maintains that had he come down the outside that day, he'd have given Placid Ark a big shake.
He continued his 3-year-old autumn campaign in Sydney with a second at Rose Hill in the Far Lap Stakes, during which he was severely galloped on. This forced him to return to Adelaide for a lengthy spell.
It didn't appear too serious at the time, and the wound healed, but there must have been, you know, deep-seated injury, deep-seated problem, because it became infected and blew up. Harry came up one morning, rode him work, and he just said the horse is not riding himself. He said, take him home, he's too good to take risks with.
He returned to Melbourne to begin his spring campaign of 1987 and surprised everyone with this paralysing burst of speed.
Duke and Rubiton with a dash. Then Society Bay, Lockley's Tradition. Everready's dropping out of it. On the corner, Rubiton went to the lead out wide from Special. Wider, Dazzling Duke. Broadreach is struggling. Everready's going backwards on the corner. Into the straight now, and Rubiton shot about 3 lengths in front of Dazzling Duke, followed by Special, Broadreach, then Princely Heart wide, but this is walked in Rubiton. It's 4 or 5 in front. It's going to win by 5 lengths. Dazzling Duke second. Caledonian Boy running on with Princely Heart, battle for third.
So, the die was cast for the horse who was to dominate weight for age racing during that memorable spring.
And our whole mission was to get the horse to relax, which we never ever really did on the track. He was always too uptight here. And I knew the Memsey Stakes was the turning point, really. There was no speed on. There was about 7 runners. Society Bay led in the field and went very slow. Took them 1:28 to run the 1,400 metres that day. Society Bay then ran the last 3 furlongs of that race, sprinted in 34 seconds. He had to be a champion to beat her, and he did.
The sprints on in the straight, 350 out, and he's got a break on the leader, Society Bay. 2 or 3 in front of Rubiton and Broadreach, and they're clear then of Cossack Warrior. Society Bay the leader. Now Rubiton is knuckling down to the task. Society Bay in front with 100 to go. Rubiton got on terms, took the lead, and he's too good, Rubiton. He's coming away from Society Bay.
Now a performance that was probably his most
was devastating. In the Underwood Stakes, he was really special.
On the rails, Rubiton about to come 4 wide around them. He's off on it now, and Tidal Light's trying to get through in the centre. On the corner, Dazzling Duke, Field Dancer. Rubiton's gone so quickly that it's run past Military Plume and has joined the leaders. Military Plume got cut off, and Rubiton swept to the lead at the top of the straight. He's raced 2 lengths in front. In second placing now, Field Dancer. Military Plume struck. Then Fair Sir, Tidal Light, but Rubiton's a mile in front. He's 4 in front with 200. Fair Sir's gone into second placing, but Rubiton canters in by 3 lengths to Fair Sir.
He was now the undisputed star of the 1987 spring, and the pressure was really on. The Caulfield Stakes was next, but sometimes something just has to give.
Well, he got away with me on the Friday morning here, and he was clocked around 6 and 18 on the sand track here. He was the strongest horse I ever had anything to do with. He had so much power. He was a horse that a lot of horses you could get hold of them, rein them up and get a short hold of them on the track here, and you will beat them. They'll give in. But he had such a will that he never ever gave in. You couldn't beat him with force.
When he came off the track, I was just turned around and walked away. I was so disgusted to see him going the way he was going. When he came off the track, I think Harry could sense that I wasn't happy. And the strapper went out to lead him in, and when he brought him back to me, I said, Harry, you didn't need that. And Harry said, won't hurt him, Pat, won't hurt him. And I said, he's not a bloody engine. He said, yes, he is. He said, he is an engine, this horse, he said.
Rubiton's not responding too well. Drought's run to him, in fact. Fair Sir in front of Drought the outside. Rubiton's gone. Drought coming at Fair Sir near the line, and Drought's got up.
So now they had a problem. How to bring a horse back to win the championship of Australasian racing, the Cox Plate, in just 2 weeks. Long-time friend George Hanlon provided the solution. Rubiton needed a break from the hurly-burly of city training tracks. 2 weeks in the country might just help rejuvenate the champion.
To be quite frank, on Cox Plate Day, I had a feeling of calmness because I felt that I'd done all I could for him down at the property at Leopold, and you know, it's a big race coming up. You've done all you can do. That was that.
Never seen a Cox Plate like this, spread out at the 800. Bow Road 6 lengths clear from Tidal Light. 8 lengths Marwong. Poetic Prince off the fence has gone up 4th. Bozam a length and a half away from Fair Sir. Carpstad. Rubiton's travelling well. Then Midnight Fever, High Regard, Campaign King and Drought. With 600 to go. Bow Road 4 lengths to Marwong. Tidal Light I think's gone. Then Poetic Prince, Bozam. Here's Midnight Fever letting go the filly. Rubiton trying to get out, and then follows Carpstad, and Drought's broken down. 400 out, and the leader still Bow Rogue, a length to Marwong. Our Poetic Prince is travelling beautifully the outside, and Rubiton's getting out. Our Poetic Prince has claimed the leaders on the turn. Rubiton and Fair Sir out after it. It's Our Poetic Prince in front. Rubiton stumbled, bumped into Fair Sir. Our Poetic Prince a length in front. Rubiton gets balanced, races up on the outside. Rubiton's hit the front, and Rubiton's won the Cox Plate. About a neck to Our Poetic Prince, a length to Fair Sir.
Despite the weight of public opinion against his decision, Pat Barnes elected to line Rubiton up in the Wait for Age McKinnon Stakes on Derby Day.
And the leader is King of Brooklyn, 2 lengths to Rubiton, a length and a half Military Plume and Drought to the outside from Belciano. King of Brooklyn clear. Harry's hard at work on Rubiton. He's not responding too well. Military Plume and Drought sticking with him. It's King of Brooklyn in front. Rubiton's getting to him now. Then came Military Plume and Drought. Rubiton's got to King of Brooklyn. He's taken the lead with 100 to go. He's in front. Military Plume's grabbing him. King of Brooklyn's coming again. It's a race. Rubiton a nose in front and won.
Little did we know that we would be robbed of the opportunity to see Rubiton's greatness develop further in the autumn of '88. He returned to Adelaide after the McKinnon, and midway through his next preparation, tragedy struck.
Went to feed him at lunchtime one day, and he had a tendon, a bow tendon. And to this day, I consider that it must have happened through the horse getting cast, because he was a horse you kept close watch on all the time, and I had never ever noticed any indication of tendon trouble until that particular time when I went to feed him.
Well, I'll never forget him, and I'm building a new home up at the farm, and it's going to have a nameplate over called Rubiton, so I'll never forget him.
He moved me to write a poem about him one time, and it goes like this. When he walked into the stable, striding bold with equine grace, one couldn't help but feel he'd put a smile upon your face, for he was something special. He proved as he progressed what a champion he really was, to meet and beat the best. At sprint or any distance, he'd take them in his stride. With Harry sitting quietly, he'd fill your heart with pride. His racing days are over. A sadness grips my heart. There'll never be another, and our time has come to part. My memories will linger of the day when he arrived, and the many thrills he gave me as game-heartedly he strived. He'll stamp his stock with will to win, I quote, convinced of that, for Rubiton was, after all, a true aristocrat.